Today we're going to be ending our four-skein challenge series with a scrap yarn beanie. And I will link to the beanies in this series in the description below. And what I love about this beanie is as you run out of your colors, you will not have any more yarn left over. So there are no little small amounts of yarn. This will literally use everything that you have. And I am working with some scrap wool yarn that is size 4 and medium weight. And these are all left over from the other beanies in this series. I'm also using a size H or 8 or 5mm crochet hook. And I recommend a safety pin or stitch marker for this. The first thing that I'm going to do is just arrange my yarn by size. And we're going to work this beanie from the top down, so go ahead and grab your smallest ball of yarn. And we're going to attach this to our crochet hook using a magic circle. And we're going to chain 1 and place 12 double crochets inside of our magic circle. And if you're unfamiliar with any of the stitches used in this pattern, then check the links in the description for my stitch tutorial videos. And once you have your 12 double crochets in place, then you can pull on your tail to tighten the gap in your magic circle. And for this next row, we are going to create a spiral pattern. So that's where you're going to need your stitch marker. And what we're going to do is we're going to begin placing our double crochet stitches right here in this first double crochet without joining our row. So the pattern for this next row is to place 2 double crochets in each stitch in your row going all the way around. So you're just going to work right in your next double crochet, and if you would like, you can crochet over your starting tail. To do that, just line it up with your stitches and treat it like it is part of your stitch. And usually after I've placed my first 2 stitches, I slide my stitch marker into that first stitch. And if at any point you run out of yarn, you can look ahead to see that process. And your row ends when you make it back to your stitch marker, and you should have a total of 24 double crochets in your row. So we're going to go ahead and remove our stitch marker. And the pattern for this row is to alternate between placing 1 and 2 double crochets going all the way around our row. And just like before, I usually place my first 2 stitches and then mark the first of the 2 stitches. So go ahead and repeat this alternating pattern going around your row, and when you get done, you should have a total of 36 double crochets. And the pattern for our next row is to place 1 double crochet in our first 2 stitches, and then 2 double crochets in our third. And we just want to repeat this pattern going around our row for a total of 48 double crochets. And it does look like at some point in this row I'm going to run out of yarn, so I'll show you how to manage that when that happens. And when you start to run out of yarn, make sure you've left at least a foot to work with. So what we want to do is taper off our spiral. So to do that, we're going to place about 4 single crochets and then a few slip stitches, but we want to follow along with our pattern while we're doing this. So we're basically just going to replace our double crochet stitches with single crochets for about 4 stitches worth, and then slip stitches for 1 or 2 more stitches. So for me, I placed my 4 single crochets, and so now I'm going to place a few slip stitches. And it is important that you keep these slip stitches loose enough that you can work in them. So I placed a total of 4 single crochets and then 2 slip stitches. So once you've done that, then we're just going to tie off what's left of our yarn. And we're going to grab our next color and attach it to our crochet hook using a slip knot. Then you have to figure out where in your pattern you were when you left off. So for me, I need to be working in my next stitch, but sometimes if this is an increasing stitch, you might have to place this in the same stitch where you placed your last slip stitch. So go ahead and insert your crochet hook wherever you are in your pattern. And all we're going to do is yarn over and pull through all the loops on our crochet hook for a slip stitch. And from here, what we want to do is pick up where we left off with our pattern, and we're going to place a few single crochets. So for me, I'm probably going to place about 4, and you're going to dive right back into that same stitch where you placed your slip stitch to join. And again, you have the option of crocheting over your tails if you would like. And you're just going to pick up where you left off with your pattern. Again, placing a few single crochets, and then you can start placing your double crochets. And you're going to end your row when you get back to your stitch marker, just like before. And at the end of your row, again, you're going to remove that stitch marker. And the pattern for this row is to place 1 double crochet in our first 3 stitches and then 2 double crochets in our 4th stitch. And we just want to repeat that going around our row for a total of 60 double crochets. And when you get to the part of your pattern where you've changed colors, what we're going to do is just continue our pattern right over our stitches. And in this stitch where you cut and tied off your yarn, if that is really, really tight, you do have the option of going into the row below it, which is what I'm going to do. So I'm just going to skip right over that stitch and just dive right into that row below it. And that will help your transition look a little nicer. And you want to make sure you skip this first little slip stitch. It might be really, really tiny because it's attached to your starting tail. So just make sure you skip that stitch and dive right into your first single crochet. And again, your row is going to end when you get back to your stitch marker. And all the while, you should be keeping up with the pattern for your row. And at the end of your row, again, you can remove your stitch marker and you can put this away because we won't need it anymore. From here, we're just going to place 1 double crochet in each stitch in each of our rows, going all the way around and continuing our spiral pattern. And so I'll show you one more time when I run out of yarn for this color, how to change colors, just because I know that can be a little confusing. And when you start to run out of yarn again, you want to leave a little over a foot. And we're just going to place 1 single crochet in our next 4 stitches. Then I'm going to place a slip stitch in my following stitch. And if you have enough yarn, you can place more than just 1 slip stitch. From here, we're just going to tie off our yarn. And again, we're going to attach our yarn to our crochet hook using a slip knot. And for me, I'm going to insert my crochet hook in my next stitch. Then I'm going to yarn over and drop all the loops on my crochet hook. And in this same stitch, I'm going to add a single crochet, and you do have the option of crocheting over your tails if you would like. So from here, I'm just going to place 1 single crochet in my next 3 stitches, and then I'm going to switch to double crochets. And I'm just going to pick my pattern up from there. And again, when it comes to that last stitch with your previous color, if your slip stitch is really, really tight, then go into the stitch below it that you worked in before, like this. And make sure you skip your tiny little slip stitch and start working in your first single crochet when you get to your current color. And otherwise, you're just going to continue your pattern of placing 1 double crochet in each stitch in your row, going all the way around. And once you've gotten your beanie to your desired length, then what we're going to do is place our 4 single crochets, and then a few slip stitches, just like we were doing for our color transitions. And when it comes time to tying off our yarn, insert your crochet hook for your last slip stitch, and then yarn over and pull through all the loops, and then pull all the way through like this. And that just makes this knot a little smaller. Then I like to weave my tail in the direction that I was crocheting for a few stitches, and then up the inside of my beanie. And your finished beanie should look something like this. Thank you so much for working with me, and I hope you have a wonderful, awesome day. And don't forget to check the links in the description for the other beanies in this series.